Welcome into Reds Reality Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Razauskas, and on today's episode, we're going to talk about games 8 and 9, as I had some things come up the day of game 9, and then things come up yesterday, so we still have to catch you up with my thoughts on the rest of the Brewers series, and then we're going to talk about game 10 yesterday against the Giants. All coming up right now. So there's not a lot to say about games 8 and 9, because game 9 was another loss, and it was just like, really? Because this team can't gain any momentum. It's like when one thing goes right, another thing goes wrong. And it was a case of being reminded Carson Spires can look really good at times, but other times you realize, wow, there really is a ceiling to this guy, and the Reds are going to be so much better off when Andrew Abbott comes back and when Rhett Lauder is ready to be utilized as a piece later on in the year, whether that's in Andrew Abbott's spot or whether they move Nick Martinez back to the bullpen. I'm not quite sure how they're going to handle that situation, but you have two really strong pieces in Lauder and Abbott that are not being fully utilized right now, so that's really going to help the Reds rotation quite a bit. But yeah, it was just a case of, man, this team has some holes, and they just didn't do enough to address the offense. And it makes you think about Nick Krall and the fact that Nick Krall's job, it's not easy, because you have a situation where you're told, okay, this is your ceiling. This is what you can do. How are you going to construct a roster that's competitive? And really the only way to do it, with the way that the Castellinis have kind of tied the hands of Nick Krall, is by Nick Krall relying on healthy players and by him relying on prospects to come up and make an impact. As much as we as Reds fans, and I've been screaming for it all year, and I'm still internally screaming for it, because I believe that it's a case of something that can be done, and I'll get into why. But as much as we as Reds fans are internally screaming for moves to be made, trades to be made, free agent signings to be made, when that is a possibility to happen, it's not as easy as we think it is, because of what I alluded to that I was going to get into, and that's the Castellinis. The Castellinis, our ownership, are tying the hands of Nick Krall and the GM, and there's just only so much that they can do, quite frankly, and it's just really frustrating. And it harkens back to this idea of a small market. That's why this happens with teams like our Reds, because they're like, okay, we're a small market. We're not LA, we're not New York, we're not Philly. We can't just go out and spend all the money in the world. But the truth is, that's really an excuse to not spend money, and there's current ownership that either should not be owners because they don't have enough money to effectively build a winning team, which I actually think the Castellinis fall in that category, or then there's ownership that just quite frankly is too tight-fisted and tight-wadded and won't spend the money where it's needed. And I think that's why I've been preaching for, when this next collective bargaining agreement happens at the end of 2026 to start the 2027 season, or maybe it's at the end of this year, and we're threatening a lockout next year. I don't remember which is which off the top of my head, but I know it's really, really soon that this current collective bargaining agreement will end. And I think that a key component has got to be a salary floor. It's got to be a situation where every team is forced to spend a certain amount of money in order to build a competitor. Now, there are people out there, because I've seen them on Discord with my Locked On Reds friends, and I've seen them on social media, and I've talked to them IRL, that have said, well, if there's a salary floor, Josh, I'm really fearful that the Reds would move, and it would force the Reds to move because the city would not be able to handle that kind of infrastructure. And again, I don't see that happening. I think the Castellanis would sell and be told to sell by Robert Manfred and those who manage in the higher-ups in Major League Baseball before that would happen. Why am I so strong in that belief? Because the Cincinnati Reds were the first Major League Baseball team in history. Major League Baseball would not exist without what was then known as the Cincinnati Red Stockings, which then became the Cincinnati Reds Legs, and then became Cincinnati Red Legs, and then became the Cincinnati Reds that we have all known and loved throughout all of our lives, most of us watching and listening to me do this show. So when you think about that and the fact that the Reds are literally hundreds of years old, I just don't see the league moving the team. Heck, for a long time, for those of you that don't know, because now it goes to the Dodgers with the Tokyo series. Before the Tokyo series happened with the Dodgers and their opponents every year, it went to the winner of the World Series, I believe, just like the winner of the Super Bowl gets to open the NFL season. But for a long, long time, baseball did not open any place but Cincinnati, Ohio, because the Reds were the first team in Major League Baseball. And that only stopped about, I want to say 5-6 years ago, maybe a little bit more than that, but it hasn't been very long at all in terms of baseball years that was a fact. And that's why we have things like the Fenway Market opening day parade and the atmosphere that we have, the tailgating celebration atmosphere that we have, and why players and fans all over the world say that nobody does opening day like Cincinnati, because it's just a fact of life. So yeah, the Reds aren't going anywhere. They aren't moving, but the infrastructure would change, and it should change. And that's just where my head's at. I'm frustrated as heck because I believe that this team can be better, and it will be better, but I don't know that it will be where we want it to be, barring everybody being healthy, unless the infrastructure and changes are made around this team. And if you don't believe that, if you have a hard time stomaching that or allowing your mind to be in that mindset again, just backtrack and look at game number 8 against the Brewers. That was an 11-5 Reds win. CES hits a home run off the batter's eye that went, I believe, 427 feet, I believe, according to my notes. And then Ellie De La Cruz just went off. He had 2 home runs, one of them extremely long, the other one just a typical, well, they were both long, but one was extremely long because I think it was close to going off the batter's eye as well. And then, just a normal home run, if there is such a thing as a normal home run. And he had a single, a triple, and a. Or sorry, yeah, no, I was right. A single, triple, and a double. So, I don't know. Which I'm trying to remember. He was one hit short of the cycle. That's why I keep trying to figure out which hit he was missing. I think it was the double. So he had 2 home runs, a triple, and a single. That's what it was. 2 home runs, a triple, and a single. So he was only a double away from a cycle for the second time in his still extremely young career. That's why we're so excited about this guy, and that's why Ellie De La Cruz is one of the current faces of baseball. So, yeah, when you look at this team being able to put an 11 spot on the Brewers, who've been their nemesis for I don't know how long, the new version of the Cardinals, and before them, the new version of the Dodgers, before the Reds had a Central Division, and way back when they were in the NL West. There's always these teams that become your rivals, and they become your rivals just because not only do you dislike them, but that dislike and that disdain comes mostly from the fact that you can't beat them. No matter what you do, you can't beat them. And no matter whether or not they're a small market team themselves or not, of course the Dodgers never were back in that era. But when you look at the Cardinals and you look at the Brewers, whether they're also a quote-unquote small market team or not, and in the case of the Brewers are actually spending less than the Reds are this year, which is nuts when you think about that. But they still just always find a way to beat you. They really just, no matter what it is, they'll find a way to beat you. And yeah, man, I don't know. I just don't have any answers for how they do that. But you look at that game on Saturday and you realize that this team can be tremendous. And when you have Spencer Steer maybe getting healthier, because he homered in that game as well, but I still think he belongs on the IL, and we'll see if that happens when Austin Hayes comes back. So you've got pieces to this offense where this offense has not been 100%. Spencer Steer's not healthy. Austin Hayes isn't healthy. So, yeah, a lot of that is part of what we're seeing. But that just about does it for my thoughts for the Brewers. There was only one cut in this section as I was clearing my throat. But yeah, that just about does it for my thoughts on the Brewers. Not much more I can say. So, because we played on the West Coast last night, I am not able to watch West Coast night games, which doesn't really matter because I can't record anyway until the morning. Most mornings and night games anyway, even when they start at normal time. It's just not feasible for me to have anything but a next day episode for you. So for you out there, that will never be a thing and will never change, but just for the sake of you guys knowing the information, because I thought maybe you might like to know it. When the Reds play at night on the West Coast, that becomes morning baseball for me the next day, because I cannot stay up because I have caretakers that come in and help me, which means I cannot change my sleep schedule because my getting up schedule never changes. And I don't want to be unhealthy from lack of sleep. So what I'm trying to tell you is that this isn't just 2 segments because we had the Brewers in the beginning and 1 game versus the Giants to talk about. Today, this is 2 segments because I actually have a game to go and watch right after recording this section. So I'm going to go watch the game from Monday night on this Tuesday morning at around 10:58 at the time that I'm done recording this raw footage number 1. See how it went, come back with you after the game, and let you know my thoughts on game number 10 of the season, game 1 against the San Francisco Giants, series number 2, Hunter Green versus Logan Webb. And my buddy Jeff Carr from Locked On Reds is lucky enough to actually be there for this series. And the Giants Park is probably one of the most beautiful parks in baseball, if not the most beautiful. So I'm extremely jealous. So let's find out how we did against the Giants yesterday, right now. Well, gang, the best laid plans of mice and men yet again. This is going to end up being a recap of the entire Giants series and last night's game 1 against the Pirates. Why? Because unfortunately for me, Ecamm Live, which I use to record the podcast with, pushed out an update that broke it, and every time I went to switch scenes which means, if you don't know, I meant to say that you see this main screen here, which has been mostly just the entire screen during recent episodes because we've had to do these roundups. But you see this main screen here, and then you'll see the end screen pre-made where it's me up in the top left-hand corner, and then there's nothing but red background and space for YouTube to overlay the end screen on. You'll see both of those scenes. Well, that requires a button. I hit 1 for this scene and I hit 4 for that scene on Ecamm Live with the way that I've got the hotkeys set up. And every time I went to push the hotkey, the program would crash. So now that they've fixed that update that broke everything, we can finally get back to actually recording the show. So again, unfortunately, this is going to be a roundup series, but the goal is that I'm recording this a couple hours before game time on Saturday night. So the goal is to at least be uploading this during the game, and by the end of the game on Saturday or during the game on Saturday, you will see this episode. And then on Sunday, you will see an episode that covers the Saturday game, which is Pirates Game 2 tonight, and then tomorrow's Sunday afternoon game around midday tomorrow. And then hopefully, we're finally to the point where each episode just covers one game, as has been the intention of the regular season, this entire podcast, but is yet to have been able to happen because of all of these life issues that have come up. So that's that. And then one other thing real quick before I can start talking about the team and where the team is at. I normally don't have the real-time denoiser feature of my Shure MV7 Plus turned on because it's very aggressive and I don't like the way that it changes my voice. I think it pushes a change with the noise reduction a little bit too hard digitally and affects the voice a little bit. But unfortunately for me, at the time of recording this episode, I am not alone in my house. So I've had to do that in order to make sure that all you're hearing is me. So if my voice does sound slightly different at the end of this episode, that is why. And probably the beginning of the next episode as well, because my goal is, depending on how early the game ends tonight. My goal is to record the Saturday recap before I record the Sunday recap. Like, I don't want to record them together like I've been doing. I want to do game by game for cut so that I can go into more detail and remember more without having to present you with less notes. So again, if that real-time denoiser makes me sound a little bit different, that's why. So when I left you with this awesome right now sentence or phrase, sorry, I guess I should say, because the intention was through the magic of editing, we would just jump directly into that game that I was watching that afternoon. And that game I was watching that afternoon was, of course, the Giants series, game one. And man, oh man, was Hunter Green ever dominant in that opener. If you didn't see it, it was 104 pitches, 8 2/3 innings pitched, the longest outing of his major league career. Literally one measly out shy of, sorry, my head's doing its thing again. I'm trying really hard here, guys, as always. But one measly out shy of a complete game, which is really just a hard thing to swallow, that he was not able to get that final out. But man, was he just phenomenal. He was literally carving up the Giants lineup like butter, and I've just never seen him look better. And Hunter Green is unequivocally the bona fide ace of this Reds pitching staff, and it was great. It was great. It was a wonderful, wonderful thing. I can't remember because it was a week ago now, because Hunter Green goes tomorrow for the Reds. So it was literally a week ago now, almost 6 days ago, to be precise. So I can't remember what the offense did in that game off the top of my head, but the pitching was phenomenal. We did end up winning that game, and then we won the next game, which featured Nick Lodolo, going, and we won that game 1-0. And it was the first game this season of all of the 1-0 games that our Reds had played that we actually came out on top on the winning end. So that was really cool to see the weirdness kind of even out in our favor for once. So we won that game. Lodolo looked really strong. I thought it was one of the better outings that he's had. Not as good as the outing before this, but a decent enough outing. Then in the third game against the Giants, when Nick Martinez went, as I got ahead of myself a minute ago, Nick Martinez, of course, your number 3 starter. Martinez was just okay. He wasn't his best self, but the Reds had the lead most of that game. And what happened is that Terry Francona, and rightfully so, because I think it's going to pay off later in the year for where I think this team will be when everyone gets healthy in the lineup and we get all our pieces back. And of course, I'm talking about playoff October baseball. So I get the reasoning. The reasoning is solid, but Terry Francona right now is trying to build up all the starters so the starters can throw at least 100 pitches. So he left Nick Martinez in there for a bit longer on paper, maybe, than he should have. And that got him in trouble. And then the bullpen came in and just had probably their worst game of the year. And the Reds end up losing that game after what I believe, if I remember correctly, Might have been a 5, but I'm almost 100% sure that it was a 6-run lead that the team had at that point. So, yeah, that was very, very disheartening to see the bullpen blow apart like that. And what was really infuriating to me, and I just don't understand this to this day, you had a situation in that game where Mikey Strimsky wins that game for the San Francisco Giants, but he didn't have to have that opportunity to win that game for the San Francisco Giants because the way the bases were lined up, in that game, you had the opportunity and what should be common sense from a baseball standpoint to walk Mikey Strimsky and then set up a force at any base after the intentional walk, and thus also setting up a double play, more importantly. So instead of guaranteeing that you're going to set up a double play to possibly end the game, you pitch to Mikey Strimsky and it cost you the game. Strimsky, as I mentioned, won that game for the San Francisco Giants. So Reds get their first series win and take 2 out of 3, but it could have been a sweep. And that is what's so frustrating about it. And then there was game 1 against the Pirates last night, and that was another Reds victory. Reds looked very good last night, or in my favorite uniforms, the City Connect uniforms, which I wanted to ask this question because I know that obviously Reds Country is the one that watches this show and listens to it. Does anybody out there know where to get the low profile 5950 version of the road cap? Because as you can see from my head here, the low profiles fit my head much better. They're much more comfortable on my head than are the high crowns. You saw me wearing the high crown on the road cap in the last segment, but it's just not as comfortable on my head as the 2 low profiles that I have for both City Connect and Home. But I cannot find not even just my size, which is 7 5/8, but I simply cannot find in existence the road cap in a low profile 5950 format. I even had a friend of mine from Locked on Reds server who was at that game over the weekend. I believe it was the last home game before the Reds went on the road trip. Don't really remember. Might have been opening day itself. Actually, yeah, no. That's what it was. It was opening day. Back on opening day, he even went into the team shop and tried to find it in the team shop for me. And then, of course, I was going to pay him back for it if he found it. And it doesn't exist in the team shop. When I go to the Red store on MLBshop.com, it's not there. When I go to Rally House, it's not there. I've looked at lids online. It's not there. Does anybody know? Does just this version of our club hat not exist? And if it does exist, where did you find it? And please, if you found it, let me know in the comment section down below, or hit me up on social media at Reds Reality Pod on Twitter/X or Blue Sky. Or if you're on the Locked on Reds Discord with me, let me know on the Discord where you found it and how to get it, because it's driving me crazy. It's gotten to the point where I was even looking at the 940 adjustable just for the road variation, because I just cannot stand the way the high crown feels on my head anymore. Now that I know these low profiles exist and they sit down on your head and they look nicer because they have the little bit of a pre-curb built into them, to me, this is the way the fitted hat should have always been. I know the high crown was a bit of a statement, I think, back when the New Era company first started making their caps. And I think it was also like supposed to be a lesser version of the old pill caps that the Phillies and Pirates, ironically enough, since we're playing the Pirates, used to wear. But I've always felt that they looked really boxy and really weird, and you couldn't get them to fit your head. Like, because of the box shape, it always felt like, to me anyway, that the hats were on top of your head. So yeah, I don't ever want to go back to the high crown now that I know low profile exists. So I was even looking at the 940 adjustable just so I could get a more comfortable road hat. But I would like not to have one adjustable hat and fitted for everything else. I want to be fitted because fitted's where it's at, fitted's what the players do, and it's just more of a comfort thing and more of a cool factor thing. So, didn't mean to go on such a side tangent about hats there, but I wanted to mention that because I pointed at my City Connect and was reminded of that conundrum that I'm having. So if anybody knows about the low profile road hat and if it exists and where to get it, again, the low profile 5950 New Era Reds road cap with the black bill. My size is 7 5/8. If anybody knows where to get it, please let me know. So yesterday, Pirates, the Reds won, and it was a good game, but it was also just kind of a weird game. And I'm going to tell you what I mean by that. The Reds scored 5 runs in victory, and most of those 5 runs, except for a 2-run home run by Jamer Candelario, and it's great to see Candyman have a great swing, and hopefully he's starting to come around. Finally, we know he's a notoriously slow starter in his big league career, so hopefully he's finally coming around. But it was a very strange thing what happened in that game, because every other run except for that run was caused by Pirates' mistakes. You had the Ellie effect happen, where Ellie was on first, and I believe it was, who batted second yesterday? It was Espy. Santiago Espinal was on the bag in front of him, but the Ellie effect just caused the Pirates to be like over anxious, and so Ellie ended up stealing second, getting third. The run scores in front of him, and then the very next batter, he scores his run. And then I can't remember exactly who it was or what the situation was, but that might have been all of the scoring, actually. Let me think. So there was the Ellie run, then there was one other run, then there was a 2-run homer. So no, there was one other run, because it was 5 total runs. But that other run, whose details are escaping my brain at the minute, again, trying to do this without notes this time, because it's already going to be such a long video, and I'll be lucky if I can get it onto YouTube before pregame starts. So hopefully, at least to start uploading, that is, so hopefully I do. But anyway, point being that even though I can't remember the cause of the run and who started the whole thing, it was another Pirates mistake that allowed that run to score. So it's a 5-run box score, yes, but only 2 of those runs were really caused by the Reds doing something better than their opponents. The rest of the 3 out of the 5 were caused by their opponents, the Pittsburgh Pirates, just absolutely screwing the pooch and screwing the heck up in the game. So that was very, very strange to me, and I thought, what in the world's going on here? You watch baseball long enough, you really, really do see everything. But anyway, as a result of all of this that we've now talked about in this one episode, which again will hopefully be up today before the Reds versus Pirates game 2 on Saturday. But worst comes to worst, it'll be up tomorrow, Sunday, before the Reds versus Pirates game 3. And then we will have Reds versus Pirates game 2 and game 3 in the next episode on Sunday. So worst comes to worst, there'll be 2 episodes on Sunday in the worst case scenario. And then we should be back on track. Finally, all of this wrapped up together that we've talked about means that the record now for the Reds stands at 6-9 on the season. So 3 games away from being 500 again, but starting to definitely show signs of they are going to turn this thing around and are going to be effective again. So hopefully that truly is the case. Let me know all of your thoughts either in the comment section or at Reds Reality Pod on Twitter /X or Blue Sky, as always. And just let me know what you're feeling about where we're at. As always, you can continue to check out the show each and every time that we're on. You can get the updates and just leave the general feedback on social media as well as in the comment section down below. Thank you all for listening, watching, and tuning in. And of course, right now on your screen, you can check out the latest episode as well as the episode that YouTube itself recommends the most to you. And subscribe if this is your first time here and you enjoyed what you saw and you want to subscribe and continue to be a part of this journey with me, your host, Josh Razauskas, as I continue to bring you reality as I see it on all things your Cincinnati Reds.